Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Richard, and with me is Ray from TraderLion. And today we'll be going over the chart of Ford. And this is part of our winning characteristics series where we discuss basically leadership quality stocks and identify the routines and habits that can get these type of stocks on your radar, and also the technical criteria that they share and have in common. If you want more info about basically what we call leadership blueprints, go ahead and check out the course that's linked down below in the description. So with that, Ray, I'll hand it over to you, and we'll dive into this chart of Ford and discuss basically its price action over the course of the past few months.
So we'll pick it up on the left here, basically the start of 2021 when price broke above a fairly meaningful level of $10, and the stocks was increasing in price with increasing volume. So that's the first positive that we see is every time we see a price increase with an increase in volume or step up in volume, in average volume, that's always a positive. After the fact, once you get this on your radar, once it moves from 8 to 12, it can or get your attention per se, especially this particular volume stick, which would qualify as the highest volume in over a year. And every time we see the highest volume in over a year, there's some sort of reason for that. And that catalyst might be related to maybe news, maybe earnings, maybe some sort of theme that is associated that's causing this sort of volume to show up on the charts. So every time we see HV1, which is the highest volume in over a year, we should pay attention to those stocks because something's sort of ruffled the feathers on them and something different has happened for those stocks that it's worthy to be paying attention to such names. So for starters, when we see this, even if you didn't have it on your radar here or through 10, even if you picked it up over here, at that point you can start searching for an entry area. And then the next step to everything is really determining where your risk and reward might be, or some sort of entry setup, so that you can define an edge, a entry setup, and risk reward, so that you can get a return for your investment from this particular name. In the case of Ford, the company's been around for a while. Some of us, including me, I tend to underestimate new things that are happening at the moment, such as EVs coming into the markets and things of that nature. So it's basically old dogs with new tricks now in the market, with they're innovating or trying to get into new spaces that the market is looking at, which is basically causing this HV1. For me, what I look for personally is after this volume stick is some sort of consolidation and pullback, so that I can define my risk in the name and position size properly. So one of the first things that I see is after a high volume break above this $10 area, it comes back in and it holds this $10 area. So every time a stock, there's volume coming in and then it pulls back and it holds the $10 area, which is significant. And if you just track this name, this could be a level of, again, if you're searching for risk reward after volume's already shown up and giving you a reason to get involved. So this would be one of the areas I'm interested in. Another area that we could take a look at quickly here is basically the rising moving averages. So price, the moving averages are starting to catch up to price. That could be an area of interest to define your risk at once again. And also that area at the moment, like if we just look at this particular candle, lined up really well with the $10 spot. I tend to look at whole numbers because it makes it really easy for me to manage my positions and to define my risk. So if I have, if I'm on the go, not at the desk all the time, I quickly glance at Ford and say, okay, is it above the $10 mark? Is it below the $10 mark? Which makes my position management easy after I have an entry in the name. So that would be, the first thing. Now, the other part of it is we're discussing characteristics, but is this going to be was this the best name in the market at this point in time? And we're talking January and February of 2021. At this point, it wasn't the best name in the market. So when looking back at it, it might be, fairly easy for us to say that, we should have entered right around this 10 area. But we trade a market stocks, and there are over 4,000 stocks, and we pick the best opportunities in that point in time. So if Ford wasn't that best opportunity, we just want to make sure that our system that we have in place can capture a gain if Ford was that best opportunity in that point in time. So basically, the stock holds 10, rallies up and out, and now, depending on your goal in the market, is this the highest beta name to get you the best return at this point in time? For me, it wasn't, and it's not a name that I traded. But again, it's always important to look left, review, make sure that your system captures these names on a consistent basis, so that you have a pool of stocks or characteristics that you look for, so that at any given moment in the market you can potentially enter a winning stock. So it just for this area, I mean, HV1 should get on your radar. You could put it on what I maintain is the Gappers watch list. It would make my Gappers watch list stay on that watch list for quite a while, and then search for entry areas thereafter. Richard, is there anything that you would want to add right around its initial run in 2021?
Yeah, just in that area, nothing too much to add to what you've already said. Like you pointed out, it's holding those short-term moving averages really well. It might be a little bit choppy, but is definitely respecting those. I can talk a little bit about this area right here if you want me to.
Sure, yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
Sure. So overall, you can draw a descending trend line right here. I think that's fairly obvious. You've also got the bottoms connecting here. This is kind of a setup that I've learned from Oliver Kell. Then we have basically a low cheat entry right here off the bottom. It gets nice and tight there. And let me erase this real quick because there's something important to point out here. We do have a gap down on very high volume here, which could be taken as a negative. However, if you draw a line from that high volume close, we never really break that low, and it kind of acts as support from that level. So it's actually almost subtle accumulation at the bottom of this base. And then, like I said, we have the first kind of wedge pop through this high right on this stay right here, and then we continue out, break some other horizontal key level. So that's definitely a place to enter right here if this was high up on your radar, and we see the volume coming in, expand as the stock starts to break out of this longer term base. And I think that's a pretty good low risk spot to get in, as it retakes all those key moving averages, has a launch pad there. And also people like to say the power of three, where it breaks above the 21 EMA, 10-day simple, as well as the 50 SMA right at that level. You've got kind of a confluence of all those different setups coming together, and that just kind of draws more and more traders' eyes on this name and just kind of increases the probabilities of something like this working. So definitely, if you're able to pick up on that kind of subtle accumulation with that earnings gap down close holding, that would have been an excellent spot to get in and get a nice burst in, looks like just a few weeks. It goes from basically 11.2, 11.5-ish all the way up to looks like 16. So that's a pretty significant move, especially for a more mature company like Ford. So that's kind of all I got in that area. And then we kind of repeat the process, form another downward channel. But before we get over to that, Ray, anything to add in that space in terms of how you'd like to trade?
Yeah. So the other thing I would watch in this spot is the fact that this great outline that we have here is the S&P 500. And so basically the S&P 500 is pulling in, and this name starts to pick up. So if it made one of your key watch lists and you're doing your end of day review, this name would pop up as it's positive on the day. It's positive on the day while the market's sort of under pressure. So that's also a hint of what may be coming for this name. So again, easy spots, even if you don't want to get involved in this congested area, you could set an alert. I try to set my alerts not exactly at the pivot that I want to get in, a few cents below, so that you get time to interpret the action that's about to take place rather than reacting at that point. So this 1260, 1299, 1362 areas, even if you you set your alerts and it keeps bugging it, and there's massive amount of volume coming in as it moves up the right side, and then the market doesn't really pick itself up, but this just continues to outperform in a big way. So there are several hints in there, and then also the KMA is also bunching up, tells you that it's time to pick some sort of directional move on this name. Every time we see some sort of bunch up in KMAs, which we will also talk about right over here as well. Every time this happens, the name has to pick a direction, and that direction could be up or down. And then what we're basically doing is stacking our probabilities and picking a direction, saying that the fact that it's exhibiting some sort of RS in this area, there's a lot of volume, there's HV1, and a KMA bunch up. The probabilities say that it's most likely to go up instead of going down right from this spot. So that's I mean, I think we've pretty much covered this area and this area fairly well. How it gets on your radar, how you could enter in this area as well. And then this name has a habit of going into these larger multi-month. So from about June area down into September area, just 4 months of complete declining tops line, if you want to call it that, right? Or just consolidation where it's just not doing anything good. So that's been one of my frustrations with these sort of names, but it also reminds me of how AMD trades, right? It will have these large rallies and then just go into bigger bases, large rallies, and just consolidate for a very long time. I think Neo early on in its run back in 2020, when it moved from about $2 all the way up, did very similar things, but it was a little bit of a faster paced mover in the market. So in this area, once we get that, if you've taken the Oliver Cal masterclass, he tends to, he likes drawing these downward trend lines. And the rule on that is about 3 touch points, right? At a minimum. And then if you can break out of that, he's very interested in those. Another way to be capturing this stuff is, again, the KMA launch pad that forms right about here. So price is moving up. What I like about this sort of breakout versus this sort of breakout is that the market is really obvious what's going on in the markets. It's under pressure, and it's really obvious what's going on in Ford. It's not under pressure. So there's a lot of RS, there's a lot of evidence forming. There's a declining tops line, there's a KMA launch pad. We have our highest volumes in over a year already. So there's some sort of significant accumulation going on in this name. And then we get tightness in price action. So every time we get tightness in price action, that means if you're a seller, you want to sell your stock down, but then we have buyers that want to buy stock up. What's the end result of that is basically tight action on a name. And every time we see tight action, someone's about to win a battle. And this, in this particular instance, what we see is once we know there's RS, we know there's HV1s. So what does our evidence tell us? That if I had to bet, and I had to bet big, I would bet that the buyers are about to win, right? Based on what we see on the charts and none of our opinions. So, and that's exactly what happens on this particular name after the fact. So the KMA launchpad moves up a tight area, a battle between buyers and sellers. We have enough evidence to back us up to say that the buyers are going to win this on a probability basis, because everything we do has to be tied back into the probability of it going down, the probability of it going up in the markets. So anything else you'd like to add in this area, Richard?
Yeah, just quickly going back just to the previous area very shortly, there's also a bunch of these kind of reconfirmations. That's what Oliver calls these, where you get basically another push through a pretty short, tight area on volume, and then you can likely move up your stop to these lows. That's kind of how you would manage that position. But talking about the previous area that you were just discussing, nothing much to add. I do want to point out all the pocket pivot volume signatures down here up the right-hand side of the base. Again, that's a sign that the buyers are really in control there. And then we get this kind of leak down on pretty low volume right before earnings. And then I think they actually reported not the greatest earnings in terms of the numbers, but obviously they've got that push towards transitioning over to being an EV producer, and there's a bunch of positive news and catalysts for this company. And we saw a gap up, not the best close, but overall a gap up, which ultimately holds overall. We do leak below it the next day, but this starts basically the continuation up the right hand side of this base, and a nice run on volume until once again we kind of find this equilibrium between buyers and sellers and form this pretty tight flat base looking structure. It's not perfect, obviously, pretty choppy, but very tight. I think it's around 10-12% if I'm correct. And this is also, if you step back to a weekly chart, Ray, maybe you want to go to that stock charts. This base is formed right over a significant high, all going back all the way to 2011. So if you could bring that up, Ray. That's Tesla.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you draw a line straight across from that high, you can see the base forms right above it. And actually, I haven't actually drawn this super well, but within this base, we actually have an undercut and reclaim of this level. So it's definitely acting as support right here. And this is a significant base. This is a significant breakout from this basically 10-year base. And then we had a retest, and we've kind of now reconfirmed off of that. So that's kind of what I would add in that area.
Perfect. So once we get this breakout and rally up and out, what I would be watching for is, again, this sort of, the sideways where it just hibernates, sort of goes into a bigger base for a fairly long time, and which is what we basically saw here. So in its current action, if we want to pick that up quickly, is basically what we got was a dry up in volume. But just to keep things in context, these are holiday weeks in the market. Right. So the fact that the volume was low and a dry up, it just it's a two-part thing. It could be a lack of sellers, but it could be also that it's holiday season and volume in the markets just tends to be low during holiday weeks. It's recent action once again. I mean, the market was coming in, and then this thing just lifts. Now it's building a character of like, when the market's not good, it's going to go, right? So at the moment, my frustration with this sort of name is, at what point is it going to pick that it just doesn't want to do anything anymore for quite some time? So if we just discuss current action, we got about 300 million in volume. Once again, this is significant accumulation given the fact that this stock had a high closing range, right? So that about greater than 90% closing range, which tells you that this is accumulation if we just take it for what it is on the charts and not what we think it is. What I'm watching for is basically this 25 pivot it's starting to form. The other flip side to this would be a rising 10-day. If it comes back in and wants to tag a rising 10-day and really zip off of that level. For example, if I just drop my 10-day here, right? Let's just say this is the 10 DMA, price is coming in. I want it to react to the 10-day. I don't want it to undercut and just hang around the 10-day, because what that's going to do is that's going to start one of these again, right? So if this wants to be a high beta winner in the markets, it's going to take out 25, get out of here, and head towards 30 if it wants to be doing that. If it doesn't want to be doing that, then it's just going to come into the 10-day, break the 10-day, and sort of, go into this dormant stage where it could build another flat base. Or another area would be right around this gap low. I would want to see some sort of price reaction if it does come back into that area to see if it's supported. If it's supported there, then again, you could define your risk reward and see if it wants to head higher. Anything else, Richard, on this?
Yeah, within the space, obviously you had a few kind of fake outs. This would have been a pretty short and stubby base, but this would have been probably a breakout that a lot of people got faked out. Then we just kind of fall back within the base. This was during a time when there was a lot of choppiness in the growth space, and the index, even though it's barely down here, it was masking a lot of weakness in the growth space. So this is actually kind of holding up pretty well, showing relative strength, holding up above the key moving averages. But even though it does fail this breakout, it kind of holds the structure, forms a higher low compared to this one right here. And then, as Ray was saying, moves up on low volume, although it was a holiday week, and forms a pretty clear pivot right at the 2106. That's this high right here, if you can see that here, and just goes sideways, quiet and tight for a few days. That's perfect, right up the right-hand side of a base. And actually, the breakout to this was a gap up through that level. It retest that and basically hit that 21.06 level on that low to the penny, and then just had that positive reaction, nice close, and then we had that huge gap up on volume. So yeah, that's pretty much all I would add. Like Ray said, it remains to be seen where it goes from here. Does it kind of flag out, let the market really figure itself out, or do we have that breakout, clean breakout through 25? We'll just have to see.
Yeah, and the last thing that I would add is the, another thing that sort of made it, tough to sort of get involved in this is because the market environment has been, the market around it has been really rough. So
Right.
it's hard to size it up in a big way. Maybe you could put on, a normal position size, but to oversize this in the current market environment, it makes it a little bit tough because stocks around it, if we just take a look at a few other ones like Tesla, for example, have been this is wide and loose action on Tesla. So Tesla is just saying, I am just about ready to base now, because what we see right, near the top of bigger base consolidations is this sort of action. Another one that is in this space is Lucid. That one has, it's right around that 50-day and it's chopping back and forth. GM is another one. Again, it tried to break out, but then saw a fairly swift failure. So for GM, this has been this just if you just draw like a horizontal line of resistance, this has been an area where it just can't seem to get past. So things around Ford have been a little bit tough, which makes it a little bit, to position size, even if you have it on your radar, putting an oversized position, say 30%, 35% type of position on is a little bit tough at the moment. So we'll see what it does. I'm interested top side 25, 10-day on the bottom, a rising 10-day if it catches up to price in the gap low area as potential areas of interest to get involved.
Yeah, we should also look at Lucid because Lucid's acting probably the best in terms of recent action. This and Ford, you had a nice upside reversal last Thursday, breaking out of above some pivots on Friday as well, acting pretty well. And even though it's been choppy in this group overall is about as best you get in the growth space out of this moment. A lot of computer software has really been decimated, just declining 50 days, 21 EMAs, all of that. So this is kind of a leadership group or potential leadership group as of this moment. But yeah, it remains to be seen what direction this takes. And also the overall market at this point, it's kind of unclear where things are going.
Yeah, an easy spot on Lucid is just to watch if it comes back. So if it's broke, this is a 40 level. It's broke above that level, right? It's closed about 42. So come Monday morning, if the open is, around, it opens up or opens flat, comes down to 40, supported, and then rallies up and out. That means that this thing has a bid and it might try to, keep going higher into the 50s. If it comes back, let's say 40, which is exactly what happened in this area, it rallied above 40, it came back in, couldn't hold 40, then it got flushed completely to 33. So we'll see if that happens again. If it comes back in, tightens up, and then moves up and out of there, then that's a different story. But it will make it really clear. If it holds this 40 spot for about, next week, then it has a solid chance for the KMAs to sort of start pointing up, and then the chart's going to form itself out and make it really obvious that it wants to rally back up into the high 50s.
Yeah, and what I drew across the chart there is the HVC from that breakout, that really high volume day, and it has been respecting that on a closing basis, which is definitely good to see with this name. So that's also a key level of interest, at least for me. Ray, do you want to go over to Market Smith and talk about the fundamentals of Ford just quickly in terms of what we haven't discussed just yet? You can see that the most recent quarter wasn't superb in terms of earnings. We had some, obviously, some pretty big numbers in well, I guess that would have been 2020, but regardless, we did have a great quarter in terms of the numbers this quarter, but obviously the price reaction was good, and that's the most important thing. A few quarters ago, we had some really nice earnings growth, sales growth as well, really strong estimates, nice recovery from 2020 and 2021, up almost 400%. Not too much fall through expected in 2022 in terms of growth, but estimate revisions are up. I'd love to see this get up into the 20, 25 percent range. That would be awesome. But you do have really nice and steady fund sponsorship increase over the past 2 years. And that's pretty much it, other than this is a leading group as of this moment, ranked 5 out of 197. So yeah, anything I missed, Ray, that you think we should talk
No,
about?
yeah, I think it's on point. I mean, it's not going to be the biggest. I mean, it's such a mature company. It's been around for a while, so it's not going to put up the biggest growth numbers. Already has a user
Yep.
base, so they're not really creating. They're just trying to get, you know, their existing user base to EVs. So it, with respect to one more thing that we could talk about is what makes this, so you know, the reason it acts like this sometimes is the fact that the float on this name is very, very high. So it takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of shares to move stock up, and if it's not being supported or actively, you know, being accumulated by many market participants, also known as, you know, funds in the market, then this is not a stock that retail can push around whatsoever, because the fact that its float is just way too high. So there's real power that we see is institutional power coming in and just soaking up the shares to the top side. And it takes a lot of effort to move this stock up.
Absolutely. And one last thing I'd like to mention is, looks like the market cap right now is 98 billion. I do know there's a bunch of traders who I've learned from and who I respect who watch those key market cap numbers. So 100 billion would be a potential point of resistance, at least in the short term. So that's something to keep in mind. And also, I've never kind of talked about PE before, but the market has kind of been favoring, at least in the very short term, the lower PE names, which actually runs in the favor for Ford as of this moment. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have. Ray, any last thoughts on Ford, the setup, fundamentals, anything like that?
No,
Do you like the
I
truck?
think, uh, um, no, I think from a technical standpoint, this is one of the
Yeah.
strongest stocks to be keeping track of at the moment. See if it triggers through the 25 spot, um, and especially if everything around it, the Teslas, the Lucids, and the GMs actually pick up around it, then you can have far more conviction in the name. Because at the end of the day, you get paid to bet big in the markets, and when you bet big and you're right, that you're right big in a big way, you make a lot of money. So we'll see. I want to see, you know, the stocks around it shape up a little bit more so that I
Yeah.
can have more conviction in this name.
Perfect. We'll pretty much leave it there. Like I said, if you want more information about the Leadership Blueprints course, it'll be linked down below in the description. And also, if you're interested in TraderLion private access, that'll be linked down below as well. I know I've learned an incredible amount from Ray over the past year. And yeah, the entire service is fantastic. So with that, we hope you guys enjoy this video. Let us know your feedback down below in the comments. What do you think of the Ford setup? And also Lucid, Tesla, what do you think they're going to do over the course of the next few weeks and months? And with that said, thanks again for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and we'll see you guys in future videos. Thanks.